Imagine a world where true heroes aren't defined by capes or superpowers, but by the strength of their character, the depth of their compassion, and the transformative power of their example. Picture a young child, untainted by the complexities of the world, whose pure heart instinctively recognizes real greatness when he sees it. This is the story of a simple question that revealed an extraordinary truth. When a father asked his child to name a superhero, the answer wasn't from a comic book or movie screen, but from the annals of history that continue to shape millions of lives today. Muhammad, peace be upon him. In that profound moment, we witnessed the beautiful simplicity of a child's faith cutting through the noise of our modern world. While society teaches children to idolize fictional characters with impossible abilities, this young Muslim's heart naturally gravitated toward a different kind of hero, one whose superpowers were patience in adversity, generosity in poverty, forgiveness in victory, and unwavering faith in the face of persecution. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, didn't need to lift buildings or fly to demonstrate his heroic nature. His ability to transform entire civilizations through the power of truth and moral excellence makes him the ultimate role model for all times. This child's innocent declaration carries more wisdom than volumes of philosophical discourse. It reminds us that while we adults often complicate matters of faith with intellectual debates and theological nuances, children access truth through the uncluttered lens of their fitra, that innate disposition toward recognizing goodness that Allah has placed in every human soul. Their hearts haven't yet learned to obscure truth with doubt or skepticism, which is why they can so effortlessly identify the radiant character of the Prophet as the embodiment of everything heroic. Consider what this means for our understanding of true greatness. In an age where children's role models are often cartoon characters or celebrities with questionable morals, this story offers a powerful corrective. The fact that a child would instinctively name the Prophet, PBUH, as his superhero speaks volumes about how his legacy continues to inspire across generations, cultures, and circumstances. It wasn't memorization of facts or forced indoctrination that led to this answer, but rather the natural attraction of a pure soul to the purest of examples. This moment also invites us to reflect on our own perceptions of heroism. How many of us, when pressed to name our heroes, would think first of moral exemplars rather than famous personalities? The child's response challenges us to recalibrate our values, to recognize that real heroism lies in the daily struggle to be better, to do right when it's hard, to stand for justice when it's unpopular, and to maintain dignity in the face of hardship. These were the qualities that made the Prophet, LESA, extraordinary, and they remain within our reach today. Moreover, this simple exchange between father and child contains profound lessons about Islamic parenting. It shows us that instilling love for the Prophet, PBU, isn't about dry lectures or rote memorization, but about bringing his beautiful example to life through stories, discussions, and most importantly, through embodying his teachings in our own conduct. When children see the Prophet's PBU manners reflected in their parents' behavior, in how they treat neighbors, respond to insults, or care for the less fortunate, that's when his legacy becomes real and compelling to them. As we explore this heartwarming story together, let's open our own hearts to its deeper meanings. Let's ask ourselves, what made this child see the Prophet, PBUH, as his superhero? How can we nurture that same pure love in our own families? And most importantly, how can we, as adults, reclaim that childlike clarity in recognizing and emulating true greatness? The answers might just transform how we understand heroism, parenting, and faith itself. The purity of a child's perception offers us a profound window into timeless truths about the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. When children instinctively name him as their superhero, they reveal an innate understanding that bypasses adult complexities and goes straight to the heart of what makes him extraordinary. Unlike grown-ups who might analyze historical details or theological points, children connect immediately with the essence of his character, the kindness that made him play with them, the patience that endured persecution, the honesty that earned him the title Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Even before prophethood, their young hearts recognize what scholars might articulate in volumes, that real heroism isn't about physical dominance, but moral supremacy. This childlike recognition mirrors how the Prophet, PBUH, himself interacted with children during his lifetime. Historical accounts show him shortening prayers when he heard a baby cry, carrying his grandchildren on his shoulders during sermons, and greeting even the youngest companions with respect. Children in his presence never felt intimidated or unimportant. They sensed his radiant compassion, which is precisely why today's Muslim children 14 centuries later still feel that same natural attraction. Their souls respond to what the Quran describes as his exalted character, 68:4, before their minds fully comprehend it, proving that love for him transcends time and requires no elaborate explanation. Modern psychology confirms what Islam has always taught about fitrah, that children possess an uncorrupted moral compass. Studies show even infants prefer helpers over harm doers in behavioral experiments, demonstrating an inborn orientation toward goodness. When a child names the Prophet, PBUH, as their hero, they're responding to this deep-seated recognition of virtue. They're instinctively drawn to stories of him sharing his cloak with a crying cat, forgiving the people of Taif who stoned him, or standing for hours in prayer until his feet swelled. Not because these feats are flashy like comic book adventures, but because they resonate with the child's innate understanding of true nobility. This phenomenon holds special significance in our era of manufactured celebrity role models. While pop culture offers children fictional heroes with violent solutions and superficial charms, the Prophet's PBUH enduring appeal lies in his tangible humanity combined with divine guidance. Children intuitively grasp that his ability to remain patient when hungry during fasting, generous when owning almost nothing, and courageous when facing overwhelming odds, represents a heroism they can actually emulate in their own lives. Sharing toys, standing up to bullies, or telling the truth even when it's hard. Their choice reflects not indoctrination, but recognition of the divine wisdom Allah placed within every soul. Parenting with purpose takes on profound meaning when we witness moments like a child spontaneously declaring Prophet Muhammad, PBEO, as their superhero. This isn't accidental. It's the beautiful result of intentional nurturing that goes beyond formal religious instruction. The father's simple question opened a doorway to his child's heart, revealing how love for the Prophet blossoms through everyday interactions rather than rigid lessons. Islamic parenting at its finest doesn't force beliefs, but cultivates natural affection through storytelling, lived examples, and creating emotional connections to our noble messenger's legacy. The magic happens when parents make the Prophet, PBUH, feel alive in their homes, not as a distant historical figure, but as a beloved presence. It's in how a mother gently explains why she covers her hair like the Prophet's wives did, or when a father shares stories of Muhammad's, PBUH, kindness to animals during bedtime. These organic moments create more lasting impact than any memorized facts, because they tie the Prophet's teachings to a child's lived experiences. The child who named Muhammad as his superhero likely didn't arrive at this answer through theological study, but through absorbing countless small reminders of why the Prophet matters in daily life. Modern Muslim parents face unprecedented challenges in competing with flashy digital distractions, yet this story proves authentic faith still wins young hearts. The key lies in making the Prophet, PBUH, relevant to children's world, explaining how his patience with difficult people relates to school conflicts, or how his honesty in business applies to sharing toys. When children hear how the Prophet played racing games with children, or how he wiped tears from a young companion's face, they don't just respect him, they adore him as someone who understood their world. This emotional bond becomes the foundation for deeper learning as they mature. The parenting lesson here transcends religion. It's about raising children who value character over celebrity. In a world obsessed with superficial influencers, helping children recognize true greatness in the Prophet's humility, integrity, and compassion gives them an unshakable moral compass. The child's response shows this isn't about imposing views, but nurturing their innate ability to distinguish real heroes from false ones. When parents consistently model the Prophet's manners themselves in how they speak to service workers, handle anger, or share with neighbors, children naturally gravitate toward these values without feeling preached at. This organic approach creates the kind of enduring faith that sustains them through life's challenges. Rooted in love rather than obligation, the child's declaration of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, as his superhero challenges our modern obsession with conventional heroism, revealing a deeper truth about what real strength looks like. While popular culture glorifies heroes with supernatural abilities and violent victories, this young mind instinctively recognized a different kind of power, the moral courage to forgive enemies after conquering Mecca, the resilience to persevere through 13 years of persecution, and the revolutionary compassion that transformed tribal warfare into universal brotherhood. The Prophet's heroism wasn't about dominating others, but about mastering oneself, not about wielding power, but about serving humanity, not about temporary triumphs, but about eternal principles that continue shaping civilizations. This redefinition of heroism speaks directly to our children's need for authentic role models in an age of hollow celebrity worship. Where fictional superheroes solve problems with brute force, the Prophet, PBU, demonstrated that true victory comes through patience in difficulty, dignity in adversity, and principles over popularity. His legendary heroics include carrying stones to build the first mosque with his own hands, visiting sick children in Medina, and sitting on the ground to eat with slaves, acts of quiet nobility that outshine any comic book spectacle. The child who names him as a superhero intuitively grasps what adults often miss, that changing the world begins with perfecting one's character, and that the strongest leaders are those who serve the weakest followers. The contrast becomes especially poignant when we examine the Prophet's most heroic moments through modern eyes. His refusal to curse the people of Taif, who stoned him until he bled, his insistence on equal justice for rich and poor alike, and his revolutionary respect for women and children in 7th century Arabia represent a heroism more daring than any. While children admire these stories, the deeper lesson resonates with adults that real-world challenges require Mohammedan PBUH solutions. Patience over rage, wisdom over impulse, mercy over vengeance. The child's innocent choice reminds us that we've been given the ultimate example for navigating everything from playground disputes to global conflicts. If only we'd view his life as our living manual for heroic living. The child's instinctive recognition of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, as a superhero beautifully demonstrates the Islamic concept of fitrah, that pure, natural disposition towards truth that Allah places in every human soul. This innate spiritual compass manifests most clearly in children whose hearts haven't yet been clouded by worldly distractions or social conditioning. When a young mind, untouched by prejudice, names the prophet as his hero, we witness fitra in its purest form, the soul's natural attraction to goodness, justice, and moral excellence. This profound moment confirms that love for the prophet, PBU, isn't something artificially imposed, but awakens naturally when the heart encounters his radiant example. Modern science increasingly confirms what Islam taught about children's innate moral sense. Psychological studies show even infants demonstrate preference for kind behavior over cruelty, proving humans enter the world wired for virtue. The child's declaration mirrors this universal truth. His untaught heart recognized in the prophet, PBUH, the embodiment of everything we instinctively admire: compassion that embraced orphans, courage that faced persecution, wisdom that transformed societies, and humility that rejected worldly glory. This natural recognition requires no theological training, only an unspoiled heart responding to the divine light within the prophet's character. The preservation of this fitra becomes Islam's greatest educational challenge today. In a world bombarding children with contradictory messages about identity and values, the child's pure response offers hope that the seed of truth remains planted in every soul, awaiting the right conditions to blossom. Parents and educators become gardeners, nurturing this natural inclination, not factory workers manufacturing artificial faith. When we surround children with stories of the prophet's kindness, model his manners in our homes, and create environments where goodness feels recognizable, we're not programming them, we're protecting their fitra from corruption. The child who sees Muhammad, Petra, as his superhero shows us that authentic faith grows from within. When watered with love and sunlight of authentic example, children possess a remarkable ability to distill complex truths into simple, profound realizations that often leave adults in awe. When a child names Prophet Muhammad as their superhero, they demonstrate this gift of uncomplicated wisdom, bypassing theological complexities and going straight to the heart of the matter. Their innocent perspective cuts through centuries of historical analysis and scholarly discourse to reveal an essential truth: that the prophet's life offers the purest model for how to live with purpose, kindness, and courage. This childlike clarity holds powerful lessons for adults who often over-intellectualize faith, forgetting that Islam at its core is about the heart's connection to truth. The simplicity of a child's declaration, "Muhammad is my hero," carries more spiritual weight than volumes of philosophical debate, because it emerges from that sacred space of unfiltered recognition. This phenomenon mirrors how the prophet, PBUH, himself valued and learned from children's pure hearts. Numerous hadiths show him seeking refuge from worldly complexities in the company of children, allowing young companions like Anas ibn Malik to serve him for years as he modeled merciful mentorship. The Quran's instruction to say we believe in Allah and what has been revealed to us reflects this childlike quality of accepting truth with trusting hearts before analytical minds fully comprehend. Today's child declaring the prophet PBUH as hero follows this same pattern. Their soul recognizes greatness before their intellect can articulate why. This teaches adults that faith begins not in complicated arguments, but in the heart's simple surrender to evident truth. The modern world desperately needs this childlike wisdom reawakened in adults. Our obsession with qualifications, credentials, and intellectual posturing often creates barriers to essential truths that children grasp immediately. The child's pure admiration for the prophet, PBUH, reminds us that his message transcends academic debates. It speaks directly to the human soul's longing for meaning, connection, and moral clarity. When we adults recover this childlike capacity to see with our hearts, we rediscover Islam not as a set of rules to follow, but as a heroic journey to emulate, one where every act of patience mirrors the Prophet's endurance, every kindness reflects his compassion, and every stand for justice honors his courageous example. The child's simple declaration ultimately invites us all to return to that pure state where faith is lived, not just studied, where the Prophet, PBUH, becomes not just a historical figure we read about, but the living hero we strive to become. The child's innocent proclamation of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, as their superhero, carries within it a powerful call to action, not just to admire the Prophet's legacy, but to actively embody it in our daily lives. This living connection bridges 14 centuries, transforming historical narrative into contemporary practice, proving that the Prophet's example remains as vital today as it was in 7th century Arabia. When children instinctively claim him as their role model, they remind us that true devotion manifests not through mere veneration, but through the courageous decision to walk his path in modern contexts, showing Muhammadan patience in traffic jams, patience in debilitization, patience and compassion to neighbors of all faiths. The child doesn't see a relic of the past, but a living guide for navigating playground conflicts and family challenges with wisdom and grace. His dynamic legacy manifests most powerfully in how the Prophet's, aka the Prophet, teachings continue solving 23rd century problems with timeless precision. His approach to conflict resolution offers alternatives to modern litigation. His environmental teachings address contemporary ecological crises, and his economic principles provide antidotes to today's financial inequality. The child who names him as hero intuitively senses this ongoing relevance, that the Prophet's guidance isn't locked in history books, but pulses with life, ready to transform classrooms, boardrooms, and community spaces. Parents nurturing this connection help their children discover how the Prophet's patience with difficult companions applies to handling school bullies, how his generosity during famine guides responses to modern poverty, and how his respect for diversity models interfaith relations in multicultural societies. The living legacy ultimately calls us beyond passive admiration to active embodiment. Each time a Muslim child shares toys with the Prophet's generosity, stands up for justice with his courage, or comforts others with his compassion, they don't just learn about the messenger, they become his living representatives. This transformative potential explains why the Prophet, PBUH, remains Islam's eternal superhero. Not because he possessed supernatural powers, but because he demonstrated how ordinary humans can achieve extraordinary moral heights through Allah's guidance. The child's pure recognition invites us all to this lifelong journey of growth, where studying the Prophet's life becomes a mirror for self-improvement, and loving him naturally evolves into resembling him, one noble characteristic at a time. What began as a simple question between father and child unfolded into a profound lesson for us all, that the purest hearts recognize true heroism not in superpowers, but in sublime character. This child's innocent declaration, "Muhammad is my superhero," is more than a charming moment. It's a timeless reminder of how the Prophet's legacy continues to shape lives across generations. Through his example, we're shown that real strength lies in mercy, honor in humility, and victory in patience. To every viewer who joined us on this journey, thank you. Thank you for pausing to reflect, for allowing this story to reignite your love for the Prophet, and for recognizing that his teachings aren't confined to history, but live in our choices every day. May this child's clarity inspire us to simplify our own faith, to move beyond intellectualizing Islam and embody its truths with childlike sincerity? Let's carry this lesson forward, that loving the Prophet means living his sunnah in our homes, communities, and interactions. Whether you're a parent nurturing faith in young hearts, a seeker drawn to his example, or a lifelong student of his wisdom, remember, you too can be a superhero by following in his footsteps. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah bless you for your time, your openness, and your commitment to growing closer to the best of creation. Ameen. And like, share, and subscribe to keep spreading the light of the Prophet's legacy.